Turning back to the D.C. swamp, House Judiciary Committee member Trey Gowdy saying the case has not yet been made for a second special counsel, despite overwhelming evidence of Clinton corruption presented during yesterday's hearing with Attorney General Jeff Sessions.
I don't think the threshold has been met for the appointment of special counsel, and I think this is a really important point. You can investigate something without special counsel. In fact, 99.9% of all investigations in this country are done by the women and men at the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney's offices, and none of them is called special counsel. So there's a threshold that has to be met, and I don't think it has been met.
Trey Gowdy, and our first guest tonight, says Congress is incapable of handling the Clinton criminality, and the entire Justice Department is simply paralyzed. Joining us tonight, Chris Farrell. He's Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch. Chris, good to see you. I have to say I was taken aback when Trey Gowdy, himself a former federal prosecutor, a man of considerable experience in criminal law, made those statements. Your reaction?
I tend to agree with them, frankly. I'm a former federal law enforcement officer myself. And look, there's all sorts of very complex criminal activity, whether it's racketeering or transnational criminal organizations that are investigated every single day by U.S. attorneys and by other federal law enforcement officers, and these bring successful prosecutions. And the Clinton Foundation and all the Clinton activities over the last 20-some years, nobody is more familiar with them than Judicial Watch, frankly. And a competent, hard-nosed, tough prosecutor can bring that case. When you go into special counsel land, and it's its own little weird existence, you know, when you go there, you get weirdness. Okay,
you mean like Robert Mueller?
Exactly, and that is not necessary. It automatically becomes a political football with all kinds of finger pointing and hysteria.
Right. Let me be candid with you.
Yeah.
As if I would be anything other. I'm looking here as well at a Justice Department that I think you agree is paralyzed.
Yes.
It is incapable of making a discrete decision at the top without every kind of electrical political storm around it occurring immediately. They have not, frankly, this Justice Department has been so politicized under President Obama. I don't know how you wade through it. And the Trump administration has been unsuccessful in removing those Obama holdovers and placing prosecutors, investigators by the president in that department. How do you get around that other than a special counsel?
I think the first thing is Attorney General Sessions should consider resigning. He's a wonderful man. I know that he's a man of integrity, but unfortunately, he's been essentially neutralized, and he's unable to lead the department effectively. And so, in the interest in the interest of the Justice Department, and frankly, in the interest of the Trump administration, I think the handwriting is on the wall, and the best thing to do is to step away, give the president an opportunity to appoint a new attorney general, and then let's move forward and let's stop, you know, hand-wringing and double talk and yes but no and no but yes. We need grand juries and we need indictments.
You know, I absolutely agree with you on that. My problem, and I think the problem for this government and this administration is we need also a countervailing. If you succeed in asking in having Jeff Sessions actually resign as Attorney General, if you were to succeed as well at getting Robert Mueller out of the special counsel role, then I would be doubly happy. But the fact of the matter is, I see no sign that Mueller will acquiesce. I see no sign whatsoever that Jeff Sessions will. And so therefore, I'm looking for a countervailing force to that of the special counsel Robert Mueller. Because this is madness. This man is making it clear he's going to spend whatever damn money it takes without any evidence to continue to harass, plague, and obstruct this administration and interfere in the legitimate operation of this administration.
You are correct, and we've seen further evidence of that, frankly, from the Senate Intelligence Committee, where Mr. Burr and Mr. Warner got up and said, well, we've been looking for 9 months and we found nothing, so now we're really going to look. I mean, they embarrassed themselves, frankly. And Mueller's in the same boat. So they're casting about trying to find out how much Paul Manafort spent on his suits, and somehow criminalizing that. They're desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. And Mr. Mueller, I think, you know, when the tally is added up and you find out that they spent God knows how many millions of dollars, there's a tendency to go find a scalp to justify it. And that's where we get in trouble. And that's why we should at all costs avoid
at this point,
another special counsel.
So I take your point, understand your position and that of Congressman Gowdy. If we can bring two eventualities to pass, first, Jeff Sessions resigns, Bob Mueller resigns. There's at least the prospect of peace in the land. But until then, we have a criminal enterprise in the Clinton Foundation, and the way in which corruption has just followed the Clintons throughout their entire careers and lives. And there is no consequence. At some point, this country has to find a way to hold high-placed elected officials accountable for their transgressions, or give her a clean bill of health if that's the result of the investigation. But by God, when people look at the face of this thing, it is in and of itself, it stinks to high heaven, and no one can explain to my satisfaction to this point how $143 million was placed in the Clinton Foundation for the out of the noble inspiration of the person who wrote the check.
Right. I mean, the Clinton Foundation is a criminal enterprise, period. It needs to be thoroughly investigated and, frankly, taken apart, audited forensically. All sorts of criminality. It was a money laundering operation, in my opinion. And so, given that, and given the fact that the Clintons have leveraged their political offices, whether it's the presidency or the Secretary of State, for years and years, I mean, there was no daylight between the Clinton Foundation and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And we know that because we already have, thanks to Judicial Watch litigation, we already have their emails where Doug Band is ordering Huma Abedin to set up meetings for Mrs. Clinton.
Right.
I mean, there is no daylight between the two of them. You want to talk about pay to play and leveraging government office for personal benefit? It's the very definition of corruption.